Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, City Current CEO, Jeremy Park.
Welcome back to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And that's why we're honored to be talking about We Optimize Work. We have with us Domonique Townsend, CEO of We Optimize Work. How are you doing?
Doing good. I'm doing good today.
Well, this all starts with your personal background, your storyline. So give us some of your background and what led you to launch We Optimize Work.
Oh, that's a good question. So I'm a person who likes helping people make good change. So that sets the tone for my background. I'm an industrial engineer by trade with over 17 years of industry experience. And I entered my professional career path just like everyone else. You come into the workplace to change the world, solve complex issues. And my focus was on continuous improvement. So the continuous improvement solutions, whether that was across the industry within manufacturing in the United States or across the globe. So I've worked in several industries, from the flour mill to the manufacturing environment to the corporate office, and I was able to garner that success and make an impact. But what I noticed is that I felt that I was always scratching the surface, whether it was the limitations that traditional norms or traditional beliefs of success limited how people were able to truly innovate, how people felt comfortable, and seeing consultants come in and help drive a change or a new initiative, and then leaving for the leaders and the employees to carry out actions without even being asked for their insight, without being included for their ideas for solutions, was one of the things that used to get under my skin, because I would make sure that how are we engaging employees? How are we tapping into their skills? Because that's the gold mine of opportunity, is when we tap in-house before we go out-house to seek a solution. So that inspired me to launch We Optimize Work as a working mom of four. And being in my professional title, specifically being as an industrial engineer, there were challenges in what people thought was successful. And what the thing that allowed me to be successful was tapping into executives that were willing to be champions, that were willing to leverage their influence in my ability to engage, as well as create these playbooks to help my peers navigate change without having an authority title. And that combination of experiencing the tension personally, seeing peers experiencing that, and still able to make a change, I knew that it was my time to make a bigger impact. If I was able to make a difference, imagine what are companies who actually desire change, desire innovation, what can they do if I was able to make a success even in traditional work cultures that limited the amount of innovation or the ability for employees to truly feel that work felt good. And our mission at We Optimize Work is to make work feel good. And that's what I do in my day-to-day work with corporations and organizations across the globe.
Talk about some of the things that you specialize in. So when you look at globally working with companies, give us a little bit of a teaser on the different things that you do.
Yeah, so we have 4 pillars, and we talk about how do we reclaim, or how do we look at the stalled momentum. So companies often will launch an initiative and they find themselves stalled, where we come in to see, well, why aren't these initiatives moving the needle? And then what are your assumptions? So we start there in looking at what is stalling the initiative, or what assumptions do we need to prove out before we move forward? And the emotional weight of leadership. What I do notice as well is that there are many leaders who are carrying out initiatives, and the assumption of that employees do not want to be engaged is one of those things that are carried out. And then you have leaders that are saying, if I don't do it, it won't get done. I'm driving these initiatives that their name is on it. And they're carrying out these roles with all of the demand on their own, working beyond their capacity and limiting how they're able to engage with employees. And because of that, they're stretched thin, and a lot of them are experiencing burnout or just tired. And so we look at the focuses of how are you adapting, driving change in the workplace according to your capacity, but how are you leveraging the insight of employees? And we also look at 2 other areas, just getting beyond the good enough engagement, the what do I call that? The check off the box, where it looks good. We hosted this annual end of year event and we have company merch and everyone's excited. But motivation is only a part of the puzzle. Motivation is just a temporary jumpstart, but it's within the process, within the intentional engagement, the things that are not seen. How are you leveraging the things that are not seen, that are not able to be captured in a picture? What are those that qualitative improvement that we can have within the organization that doesn't it can't be you can't put the words to the impact that is being made. How are we tapping into that? And the cross generations. So we look at how are people adapting across generations versus counting them out. Okay, we have 5 generations in the workplace. How are we looking at what it was used? If you're using technology to help drive a task, it doesn't mean that you're looking for an easier way. It's just you found a more effective way. And then, but how do we tap into the wisdom that didn't need the technology, the wisdom that knew how to navigate through case scenarios that even AI can't inform you of those experiences. They can inform you of the outcomes or the task or the tactics rather of how to make a change. But if you tap it into the wisdom that says, okay, based on these tactics or strategies, these are the things of why I say it's not going to work. These are the things that should happen if they were to work, or if I would like to see that. So just getting generations to engage with each other and have the opportunity to realize like there are attributes that need to be tapped in on every generation, but how do we do that? And so those are the 4 pillars that we look at that we believe are the key drivers in making work feel good.
Wow is what you do, but it's also the framework. And so talk about
Yes.
the wow framework that you use.
Yeah, so we use the WOW framework, and the WOW framework is a play on we optimize work and wow, because we like to help people work their wow. We believe that in working your wow, you can begin with identifying like what is that win? What is the way that we can see where you are as an organization? How are you engaging with people? And those 4 pillars that I speak to, we adapt to seeing where are you currently at in your organization that allows you to see what you're currently doing. And then we look at the operation side. How are you making this be embedded into your organizational fabric? So that's where the gap happens, is when people are creating these strategies. Strategies only make things functional, but the operations and how you're building out the infrastructure is what makes it operational. So we look at how are we optimizing the operations to where it's a daily expectation, a daily desire for employees to want to feel empowered to take on actions, for leaders to feel encouraged to engage their employees in driving an action towards an initiative. And then we look at the following W, which is making sure that you are sustaining it. How are we winning continuously in the changes that we're making as a company and the improvements that we're making? And that goes with my the background as an industrial engineer in assessing continuous improvement opportunities. How can we continue this momentum? And is it a place where we need to stop, start, or continue to make sure that we're optimizing how work feels within the workplace?
When you look at a stalled initiative and
Mhm.
stepping in and saying, okay, let's start here. But like anything, there's complexity, and it's probably a lot of little things that also, when you start looking around, are leading to these stalls. And so
Mhm.
talk about where you like to start, but then all the other things that you're kind of looking at. And you kind of alluded to it with the, different generations and understanding the why and motivation versus, how do we carry this through the long haul? How do you like to start versus what are you looking at that really is a holistic approach to solving what starts with a challenge of a stalled initiative?
Yes. So we tie in the 3 things. I look at the emotional aspect of it, the process side, and then how will people adapt? And the way that I start is looking at what were your assumptions that led you to believe that this initiative or your initial approach will work? So we look at the assumptions. What are those assumptions that said if we did this strategy, we will be successful this year? When we communicate this piece that is written on behalf of the CEO, that is distributed out to leaders, we assume that leaders are going to communicate to employees, and we assume that employees will be on board. Well, what proves those assumptions? And we can't just leverage a third-party survey as the solution of how these assumptions are proved out. But we look at those assumptions to understand what is the thought process that companies are experiencing, what is the thought process that has led to that assumption. And of course, you do have a good feel on it based off of historical information within workplaces, but we got to make sure that we're proving out the assumptions or at least reducing it. And the second part that we do is look at the level of readiness. Now, there are traditional work cultures that are not necessarily beyond. I always a joke on it, but I love a nice environment where the nice lounges and the couches and all of those things. That's nice, but it means nothing if you go into work and you're still held to a traditional norm or a measure of success. Are you encouraging flex time and your measure of success includes face time? So now we have this where you have different departments that are treating their teams differently based off of their style versus what is the standard of the organization. And if the standard of your culture is more traditional, then there are ways that your initiative might not be as effective. You have to tailor your initiative to speak to the language of your culture and speak to the language of how it impacts the people, the leaders, and employees.
You yourself are a speaker, and so give us maybe one or two tips or recommendations when you look at all these things that you're tackling, everything from the culture and, the assumptions. What are one or two tips or recommendation around communication, leadership, avoiding burnout, managing burnout? Talk about one or two tips from your vantage point.
Well, my biggest tip is to anchor your approach into your own personal purpose. So as a leader, I believe that it's beneficial for every leader to create their own leadership purpose statement. What is the purpose if you were to carry out this goal, if you were to continue in your role, what are those outcomes that you determine as success for yourself? And how you can make an impact with your team, or you can make an impact across the organization. Oftentimes, many leaders do not create a purpose statement. They leverage the purpose of the organization. But how does that tie in and have importance to you? And make sure that it's create your own purpose statement. And then you can see how does it tie into how I can show up and meet an organizational initiative. So the anchoring your approach into your own purpose and seeing how those outcomes can be, how you can exemplify that in your day-to-day action is the key missing ingredient that a lot of leaders I encourage them to create that.
I know that one is getting your team to understand the why. So why you're doing something, kind of back to your assumptions. But when you understand the why, it becomes so much more powerful to then do.
Yes.
Give us one tip around that when you talk about how do you increase the motivation, the inspiration to accomplish the goal? How do you galvanize your culture? How do you get your team, when you talk about delegation and stepping in to take ownership, give us one, tip or recommendation in that vein.
Yes. Oh, that's a good one. And the biggest thing I say is show them how their role makes an impact. That's the thing. If we understand the why, but how does your role in particular, how does this department, or how, not even role specific, because we get into job descriptions and that's a whole nother soapbox, a rabbit hole I can go down, but it is in looking at how does your role make an impact, or how can you make an impact with your skills, or what ideas do you have? So tapping into showing people how their role makes an impact is a great way to have that motivation be sustainable. Not just, hey, I believe in you, that's good. But is that good for the person? Do they believe that they're empowered to carry out an action? Do they believe they're empowered to share that they have something personal going on and it's impacting their capacity? Do they believe that they have longevity in the corporation, especially with the adoption of technology that is happening in the workplace? So definitely showing people how does your role, or how do you, this is how we see you having an impact, and encouraging people to share how they see themselves having an impact so that motivation can become ingrained in day-to-day engagement.
Is there a positive trend that has your attention? You mentioned AI, but managing that on the tactical side versus the why and the human element side, right? And then also too, you mentioned like the culture, yet the comfy couches, the transition of the remote workforce and being able to balance in-person and remote and hybrid. What are maybe, one or two trends that have your attention in a positive way that you think will impact opportunities to be successful?
You do see more organizations being willing to, or more leaders within organizations being willing to have open conversations. So that is a trending thing that I am seeing work where leaders are more open or more visible, especially on LinkedIn platforms or within different forums where they're actually sharing particular challenges and sharing best practices. That is a great direction because it shows people are comfortable in sharing what they're experiencing, but also comfortable in receiving knowledge that is outside of what they're used to having and hoarding what they know and not sharing it. And those are the things that I do see that people are being more comfortable in sharing best practices. And the trend I know with work or return to office, there I do see more organizations that are not limiting return to office just to the amount of days that you're working per week to improve culture. Because if your culture had a gap, returning to the office doesn't improve culture. It improves visibility of people being in the workplace. And just that, the way to tap in on it is saying that these two, the way the culture can get enhanced with people is just identifying the purpose or enhancing the purpose of why people are back into the workplace, why people are engaging with each other person to person, and then doing that. So I do see a positive trend that is happening with the return to office in particular, versus without it being, well, I need you back in the office because of culture. That was the beginning part. We need it for culture. And now people are saying return to office, but we're looking at ways that we can improve what this return to office looks like. How do we make sure that we're meeting people in the middle and having like a designated day off, or even hosting like purpose related events that upskills the employees as well.
Touch on your higher purpose and philanthropy, because you donate your time through mentorship and
Yes.
working with youth. And so talk about your higher purpose and philanthropy.
Oh, yeah. My higher purpose, I am on the board of Purpose Prep Academy, and I am a proud parent at Purpose Prep Academy. I've been a parent at that school for over 9 years, and my youngest has 4 more years, and then I have a nephew that's coming. So I'm a lifetime parent at Purpose Prep. But yes, and I do mentor young students who are pursuing or interested in pursuing engineering and STEM career paths. That is the biggest key, is being the example of showing what's possible and allowing people to see the vision of themselves. You can see when you see who you are, what you're capable of being, it's easier to believe it for yourself. So being involved in different organizations and supporting how they are equipping their students with mentors is what I focus on as well. Connecting them with career recruiters, people who are in different organizations that I know professionally, and connecting them so they can have career opportunities and internship opportunities to learn, like, this is what you can do in the world of engineering. And it's a wealth of opportunities within that area, and this STEM career paths as well, being able to share the experiences that I have gone through, and then what are the things that I did to overcome those challenges and how they can apply that in their day to day. And uniquely, is the same challenges that I had in the workplace. People are still going through those same type of challenges, but how can we lessen the burden of feeling that you're carrying the weight? So the philanthropy and being involved in community revolves around giving them the tools that I've received or have gained over time, and then connecting them, not just cheerleading them on, saying, good job, stay in the path, but how do we connect them? And advocacy for youth education to ensure that despite the neighborhoods that they are in, despite the statistics that are predicting where a child is supposed to go based on their performance, we're providing equitable opportunities for education for the youth. So those are my key areas, is education for the youth and advocating for students that are interested in STEM and engineering career paths.
We'll wrap up with where we can go to carry this conversation forward. Where can we go to learn more and connect with you for We Optimize Work?
Yes, connect with me on LinkedIn. I am heavily on LinkedIn. That's the platform that I like to be on. It's highly engaging, and you can learn, gather insights from me. But follow me on LinkedIn, or connect with me, or message me. I recently published a book. It's called Inspired to Innovate. So I encourage you, if you any of this information resonated with you, you want to learn more to apply within your own workplace, Inspired is at weoptimizework.com. But LinkedIn is the platform that I'm at from a social engagement standpoint.
Once again, the website, weoptimizework.com, easy place to go and learn more, as well as LinkedIn. So Domonique, thank you for all you do to power the good. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the City Current Show. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.